Hi, welcome to the Sharesight channel. We have introduced a new report that measures a portfolio downside risk called the drawdown risk report. This video is part 2 of the two-part video series where we'll walk you through the report in Sharesight and talk about the 4 ways on how you can use this report. Feel free to use the video chapters to skip to the parts that you're interested in. If you're new to this video, the part 1 covers the 2 key tools in the report, the maximum drawdown and the return over maximum drawdown. The link to the part 1 is in the description box below. This video is for informational purposes only, so it does not constitute any product recommendation or taxation or financial advice. Always consult with your advisor or accountant to obtain the correct advice for your situation. The drawdown risk report is under the asset allocation section in the reports tab. You can find the drawdown period, grouping, and graph settings at the top of the report. You can select which year to calculate the drawdown from the maximum drawdown period option. If you select since 2019, for example, the report will calculate the maximum losses for your holdings from the 1st of Jan 2019 to the latest closing price. There is also the option to group your investments by any grouping. The last one gives you the option to hide the graph. Below the settings is the graph. All of your active holdings are plotted on the graph along the X and Y axis. The vertical Y axis is the annualized return percentage, and the horizontal X axis is the maximum drawdown percentage. Each bubble represents a single holding when not grouped. Otherwise, it depends on the grouping you have. For example, each bubble will represent a sector if you group them by sector classification. The bubble size indicates which holdings percentage of the total portfolio. The larger the bubble, the greater that investment shares of the portfolio. The bubble color makes it easy to identify each investment. You can also find your portfolio average return and max drawdown on the graph. This gives you a good sense of which investments are outperforming or underperforming the portfolio average from a return and max drawdown perspective. You can click and drag the graph to zoom into a specific area in the graph. Click Reset Zoom to go back. You can also hide holdings by clicking on the legend. Below the graph, you have the option to add a benchmark. A benchmark gives you additional context on how well a portfolio is doing in terms of returns, max drawdown, and roadmap. For example, because this portfolio is mostly consists of ASX holdings, I'll use VAS as the benchmark. You can see that over the 5 years period since 2019, VAS has a compounded annual growth rate of 11%, including dividends, a max drawdown of 35%, which gives a roadmap of 0.3. In the summary section, you can see the holding value, return, max drawdown, and roadmap. The value column represents the current market value. The return column is the annualized return over the selected period, which includes dividends and currency gains, if any. 2 things to know is that the return calculation can change depending on the performance calculation method. This report only shows open or unrealized positions at the moment, and the roadmap column shows the return on maximum drawdown ratio. I'll talk about the 4 ways on how you can use this report. The first one is benchmarking your portfolio. Now compare your portfolio to an index fund, for example, tells you if you are doing better or worse than the market. If you are doing better than the market, Is it because you are taking more risks? Or if the portfolio is not performing as you expected, is that because you are too conservative? In this example, this is an old ASX portfolio, so I'll use VAS as the benchmark. So since 2019, the portfolio return has done better than the benchmark by almost 6%. It also has a higher max drawdown, 53% compared to the benchmark 35%. As a result, the raw mat ends up the same at around 0.3. This shows why context is important. If you compare this portfolio to a baseline raw mat of 1, it would appear to have underperformed significantly, when in fact it is actually doing as well as the market's raw mat. Next, we can look at which investments drag down the overall performance. In this case, which investment have a max drawdown that is higher than the benchmark 35%. The max drawdown is on the x-axis or horizontal line. There's a 35% line here. Anything to the right has a max drawdown above 35%. So I'll click, hold and drag to zoom into this space. I also want to know investments that have returned below the benchmark 11%. I can zoom into this space using the benchmark as a starting point. This shows all the investments with returns below 11% and a max drawdown above 35%. You can also look at the investments raw mat that are below the benchmark by sorting the raw mat column in ascending order. Now from here, you can do further analysis to decide if you need to do anything about them and write down the reasons behind your decisions in the holdings page notes section for future reference. The second one is portfolio rebalancing. For example, let's say you're doing your quarterly review on your portfolio. You notice CBA makes up 18% of the entire portfolio in the diversity report, which is above the 15% threshold that you have set for any single investments to avoid over-concentration risk. So you decide to trim down your CBA positions, but before doing that, you need to find out how much you need to sell to bring it down to 15%, what is your CGT liability, and where should you invest your proceeds. You can use the unrealized CGT report to work out your potential CGT liability. And you can use the drawdown risk report to help you to work out where to invest the proceeds. So let's say you want to put these proceeds into investments that have a high raw mat. You sort the raw mat column in descending order. There are only 2 investments that produce a better risk-adjusted return than CBA, and they are Pro Medicus and Technology One. Between the two, Pro Medicus has a better raw mat at 1.44, so it looks like a better choice between the two. But Pro Medicus is also near the 15% portfolio threshold as well. So if your criteria is based on picking an investment that has a better raw mat without going over the 15% threshold, Technology One would be the choice. The next scenario is retirement planning. If you are close to retiring, there are 2 key risks. First, a significant loss that affects your retirement income, and second, not generating enough return to sustain your retirement lifestyle. So it is about finding the right balance between too much risk and not generating enough returns to meet your retirement goals. So the drawdown risk report is a good starting point to solve these problems. To avoid taking too much risk, you can set a max drawdown threshold. Now, there are many factors that decide what is the right threshold for you, but the 2 main ones are your investment weightings and the number of years before you retire. As a general rule, a high investment weighting should have a low max drawdown threshold. So for example, an investment that makes up 30% of your portfolio should have a lower threshold than one that weights 5%. And this is the same as how far away from your retirement. You can afford a higher max drawdown threshold if you are 10 years away from retirement than say if you are about to retire next year. Once you have set the average max drawdown threshold, the next step is to decide the average return that you need to achieve your retirement goals. For example, if you set the max drawdown threshold to 40% and the 5-year average return of 9%, you can use the graph to work out which investments has a threshold that is above 40% and return below 9%. Here I can click and drag to only look at investments that have a max drawdown that is above 40%. Then I'll do the same for returns, zooming into investments that have a return for less than 9%. From here, you can do your research further to decide if you should continue to hold or sell some or all of them, and write down the reason why you choose to hold or sell for future reference. The last one is comparing strategies and asset classes. You probably own different investments for different reasons. Some because they are fast growing, some for their intrinsic value, and others because they pay nice dividends. Each strategy has a slightly different risk profile. For growth strategy, you might be more focused on risk-adjusted performance, whereas for dividends, you'll be more concerned about the sustainability of the income. Market conditions also affects the performance of each strategy. A bullish market tends to favor a growth strategy, whereas for dividends and value strategies might be more resilient during a market downturn. In this example, the investments are grouped into 3 strategies: growth, dividends, and value. You can evaluate how each strategy performs under current market conditions, in this case, over the past 3 years. What are the max drawdown for each strategy and how they align with the overall portfolio objective. This also applies to multiple asset classes. You can see how well each asset classes balance risk and return. This information can help you ask better questions about managing your portfolio risk. So for example, how does the portfolio's risk levels align with your financial goals? Are growth assets like equities with a higher max drawdown provide the returns that justify the risk? How about defensive assets like fixed interest and cash? Are they contributing enough to stabilize the overall portfolio? So these questions can help you optimize a risk-adjusted return across different market conditions. This concludes the video series on our drawdown risk report. If you like this video, don't forget to like and feel free to ask us if you have any questions. Hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video, and follow us on social at Sharesight for more product updates and announcements. We will see you in the next video.